Welcome back. I'm Allison Stewart. Rachel is feeling a little under the weather tonight, but she should be back tomorrow. Okay, pop quiz. You're the governor of a state whose unemployment rate is 5.5% and likely rising. Your state is facing a projected $1.7 billion budget shortfall. Your residents are still piecing together their lives and trying to rebuild more than 3 years after being hit by a devastating hurricane. What do you do when the federal government offers you a lot of money to relieve your state's financial stress? Right, you take it. But not if you're Louisiana's Governor Bobby Jindal. The nation's youngest gov is one of a handful of Republican governors who, in the face of economic calamity and rising unemployment rates in their states, are saying thanks but no thanks to some of the stimulus money aimed at propping up their states and getting them on the road to recovery. As the Republican governors wrestle with their inner Reagans over whether or not to take the stimulus cash, the cash is on the move. President Obama announced today he is proceeding full speed ahead, fast-tracking a portion of the stimulus money aimed at helping states with rising Medicaid costs. All told, $15 billion of stimulus money will move out to the states starting on Wednesday. And yes, there is a money nanny of sorts who will make sure the money is spent effectively and efficiently. Actually, there are two financial caretakers, Vice President Biden and Interior Department Inspector General Earl Devaney. President Obama announced they'll oversee all of the stimulus spending. So the stim train is moving out of the station. The debate's over. The bill's been signed. The money is about to head out the door. The only question now, will Republican governors who have claimed they will turn down some of the money actually turn the money down? Today, President Obama suggested otherwise.
I just want to make sure that we're having an honest debate and presenting to the American people a fulsome accounting of what is going on in this program. If we agree on 90% of the stuff, and we're spending all our time on television arguing about 1, 2, 3% of the spending in this thing, and somehow it's being characterized in broad brush as wasteful spending, that starts sounding more like politics. And that's what, right now, we don't have time to do.
Now, we weren't there in the room, but a White House pool reporter was, and noted to whom Mr. Obama seemed to make those comments. Quote, Obama looked towards Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal, Mississippi Governor Haley Barbour, and South Carolina Governor Mark Sanford, who were to his right. All three Southern Republican governors. All three have led the very public I don't want your stinking stimulus cash campaign in recent days.
The bigger philosophical point is this. I just have a fundamental disagreement with this package.
There's some we will not take in Mississippi.
At times it sounds like the Soviet grain quotas of Stalin's time. X number of jobs will be created because Washington says so. And that's not the way that jobs get created.
Not only are those Republican governors now being called out by President Obama for threatening to resist the help, those Republican governors are now being second-guessed by some high-profile fellow Republican governors.
You know, people run for office in order to try to help their constituents, the people of their state or their district or their country. The people of our country want people in office who will put common sense in their decision-making process.
You got to go beyond just the principles. You got to go and say what is right for the country right now. By derailing everything, it's not going to help anybody, and it creates instability and insecurity.
California Governor Schwarzenegger has already said he'll take the money his fellow Republican governors don't want. And today, New York Senate delegation said, us too, telling President Obama in a letter, quote, if any governor, Democrat or Republican, leaves stimulus money on the table, then we respectfully request that funds be distributed to New York. So what exactly is the political calculation behind turning down stimulus money in the middle of a giant recession when Americans, presumably constituents, desperately frankly just need help? Joining us now is David Korn, Washington bureau chief for Mother Jones magazine. David, thanks for being with us tonight.
Good to be with you.
When you look at the Republican governors supporting the stimulus like Charlie Crist and those opposing like Bobby Jindal, can you glean anything about Republican ideology on this one? What are the signs of politics and what are the signs of principle?
Well, maybe we should salute them for standing by principle. These people, are in a very distinct minority now. They believe that in these troubling economic times, we should not be looking to government. Listen, at the core of the Republican Party, its conservative ideology has always been a free market, anti-government fetish. And if these people want to carry that on because they think it's going to help them if they're running in 2012, or if they actually believe it, I don't know which is worse. I say let's see how the political market will respond to them down the road. Eventually, Allison, all this will work out. At his first press conference a week or so back, Barack Obama was asked, well, how will you measure your success of your stimulus? And he, being something of an adult, said, well, come back in a year and let's see if we've created and saved jobs in that point in time. Well, he has asked for he has said that 3.5 million jobs will be created or saved by this package. If we're on the road to that, then you can say it's been a success. Now, at that point in time, if there is any sort of positive consequence of the stimulus bill, how are Bobby Jindal, Harley Barber, and Mark Sanford going to justify their stand to their own constituents? I mean, they want to say, we don't want to be part of this. That's fine. Eventually, I think in this case, it doesn't always work this way in politics, but eventually reality will determine who has the better political argument.
Looking at the common denominator of those who might not take the money, all Southern Republican governors. What can we read into that?
Well, they are all conservative, and you look at who's taking the money. Particularly Governor Schwarzenegger. He's like, give me the money now. He's been a moderate Republican. He's worked with Democrats, but it's you have Jim Huntsman of Utah who's taking the money. Charlie Crist is not is somewhat of I think probably more practical than ideological, and these people certainly are not looking to score either ideological or political or principle points.
So we have practical, principle, and politics here. They don't seem to be the best friends here.
No, sometimes, believe it or not, sometimes they're not. Barack Obama said, we don't have time for politics, but we always have time for politics. And it's very hard to separate out. I can see the campaign ad here. If the Republicans who voted against the bill in the Congress and who don't take the money, get on the wrong side of this a year or two out, even in a conservative Republican territory, they could be into trouble. But it all depends on whether this succeeds or not. They're taking put principle aside for a moment, they're taking a calculated political risk. The Republicans who all voted no in the House, and most of the Republicans have voted no in the Senate, and these governors who are sort of saying we don't want to be a part of this, even though I think at the end they'll take most of the money. The Republican Party is already very marginalized. It has nothing to say about the big problems we face now. After 8 years of Bush, and we had 12 years of Republican control of the House and the Senate, what do they have to say about regulating markets, about using government to get out of the holes created by the past administration? They had nothing to tell us about solving the problems in Iraq and Afghanistan. So really, what are they left with other than saying, we're not going to take federal funds? It's not much of a platform for the party, and what's happening is you have two conflicting messages coming out of the party. When the party is back on its heels, you have one set of governors saying one thing, another set of governors saying something else, and so the Republican brand, I hate using that term, already very weak, is becoming weaker by the day if they continue to have this internal debate.
David Corn, Washington Bureau Chief for Mother Jones Magazine. Thanks for walking us through that.
My pleasure, Allison.